Every day seems to start the same way, traffic frozen on the highway and a calendar packed so tight you barely remember what silence sounds like. And somewhere between the deadlines and the street noise, a quiet question slips in. Have you ever wanted to just disappear somewhere peaceful? Most people dream of New York, Los Angeles, or Nashville, chasing bright lights and bigger crowds. But almost no one thinks about the towns hidden behind mountain curves, deep forests, and endless farmland, places where life slows down, not because it has to, but because it can. Tennessee is a state with two faces. One is loud, alive with music and motion. The other is whispered into existence by tiny towns of a few thousand people, reachable only by winding rural roads. In this video, we'll explore 10 remote Tennessee towns where time moves differently, each with a twist you won't find anywhere else in America. By the end, tell me in the comments, which town would you escape to when city life finally becomes too much? Number 10. Lynchburg. You don't simply arrive in Lynchburg, you ease into it. The farther you drive into Moore County, the more the world around you begins to loosen its grip. Highways narrow into two-lane rural roads, rolling hills rise and fall like a soft green tide, and long stretches of pasture replace anything resembling a skyline. By the time Lynchburg finally appears, it feels less like a destination and more like the quiet answer to a question you didn't know you were asking. With a population of just over 6,400, Lynchburg is small, truly small. A courthouse square, a handful of low brick buildings, a few blocks of mom-and-pop shops, and almost no billboards to interrupt the scenery. On paper, it sounds like countless other rural southern towns. But then you see the name that changed everything, Jack Daniel's. The Jack Daniel Distillery is the heartbeat of the town, a place recognized by travelers from Tokyo to London. Tour buses rumble in, visitors wander through the historic barrel houses, and the scent of charcoal mellowing and fermenting mash lingers in the air like an invisible welcome sign. It is one of the world's most iconic whiskey brands, and it lives right here, in a town that moves at the pace of a front porch conversation. But here's the twist that surprises almost everyone. Lynchburg sits in a dry county. Moore County has a long history of restricting alcohol sales, a relic of the Prohibition era that never fully loosened. The distillery operates through special loopholes, allowing them to sell commemorative bottles that conveniently include whiskey, but the laws remain stricter than in most places. The irony is almost poetic. The whiskey that fills shelves across the globe can't be freely purchased in the place where it's born. Step outside the distillery gates and the global noise fades instantly. Locals chat with one another on shaded sidewalks. A family sits down at the diner. For lunch, someone waves from a hardware store doorway like it's still 1950. Tourists and townspeople stand in the same line for BBQ, blending into a rhythm where nobody's in a hurry and everybody seems to know somebody. That's the magic of Lynchburg. Despite its fame, it refuses to rush. You can walk from the bustling distillery tour straight into open fields within minutes. A reminder that even global legends can come from quiet places that prefer to stay that way. And if Lynchburg is a quiet legend fueled by whiskey, the next town feels like a living postcard from a slower, older America. Number 9. Bell Buckle. There are towns you drive through, and then there are towns you feel like you've stepped into as if you crossed a thin line between the present and a gentler, slower America. Bell Buckle is very much the second kind. About 55 miles southeast of Nashville, this tiny town of barely 400 people sits on less than 1 square kilometer of land. If you blink too quickly on the way in, you might miss it entirely. But if you slow down, even just a little, you'll notice something magical. Bell Buckle's main street is short enough to stroll in a matter of minutes, yet every step feels like walking through a preserved frame of a vintage film. Victorian homes stand proudly with their wraparound porches and gingerbread trim. Antique shops display weathered furniture and tin signs that look like they've lived several lifetimes. A quilt store spills color out its doorway, and a small art gallery quietly keeps local creativity alive. Wooden porch swings creak softly. Painted signs hang at slight angles, and the old train tracks slip past the edge of town like a half-forgotten memory. Life here isn't just slow, it's unhurried in a way modern America nearly forgot existed. Many stores open late in the morning and close before the sun fully sets. Some houses still hang seasonal wreaths made by hand, flags flutter above front doors, and the sidewalks remain free of the frantic pace found in bigger towns. Bell Buckle truly feels like a time capsule that someone chose not to hide, but to live in. But once a year, everything changes. On a warm summer day, Bell Buckle explodes into one of Tennessee's quirkiest celebrations, the RC Cola and Moon Pie Festival. Thousands pour into a town that usually hosts only a few hundred residents. Bluegrass music echoes through the streets. A parade winds its way down Main Street, vendors hand out snacks, crafts, and the famous world's largest moon pie. For a brief moment, Bell Buckle transforms from a sleepy postcard into a joyful carnival. And just as quickly, when the festival ends, the town settles back into its soft, familiar quiet, as if it simply exhaled and returned to itself. Outside of Festival Day, Bell Buckle remains a haven for people who love slow mornings, handcrafted art, vintage goods, and a cup of coffee enjoyed without rushing. The Webb School, one of Tennessee's oldest boarding schools, adds a touch of youth and tradition to the area, but not enough to disturb the calm that defines the town's soul. Bell Buckle reminds you of a version of America that still exists if you know where to look. An America of front porches, handmade wreaths, and conversations that last longer than they need to. A place where time doesn't stop, but it certainly strolls. But not every small town in Tennessee is stuck in the past. Some decided to copy Paris instead. Number 8. Paris. If you ever find yourself driving through the rolling farmland of West Tennessee, you might be surprised to stumble upon a town with a name far bigger than its size. Paris. Not that Paris, the one with couture runways and streets lined with poets and painters. This Paris is the county seat of Henry County, home to roughly 10,300 people and absolutely none of the skyline one might expect from its famous French counterpart. No towering skyscrapers, no grand boulevards, just low buildings, church steeples rising gently above the rooftops, open fields, and the soft echo of a football game somewhere in the distance. But Paris, Tennessee has a way of surprising you. Drive a little farther and tucked inside a city park surrounded by sports fields, playgrounds, and picnic shelters, you'll see it, a 70-foot Eiffel Tower replica, standing proudly against the southern sky. Built at a 1/20 scale, its steel frame may not shimmer like the original at night, but it has its own charm, a kind of rural confidence that makes you smile before you even realize you're doing it. Here, the tower isn't just a landmark, it's a gathering place. Families pose for photos after church, high school couples take their prom pictures beneath it, summer festivals set up food trucks and music stages around its base, and visitors, often confused but always delighted, snap selfies that look just Parisian enough to fool a distant relative at first glance. In a town with no bright lights or sweeping avenues, this tower stands as a reminder that even the quietest places can dream in shapes larger than themselves. Life in Paris moves at the pace of a small-town heartbeat. On Main Street, diners hum with the sound of breakfast conversations. A local cafe serves the same regulars who've been coming for years. Most traffic is made up of pickup trucks, minivans, and the occasional tractor passing through. Fridays belong to high school sports, weekends to church gatherings and cookouts, and most days end with neighbors waving across their yards. And unlike the glamorous Paris of postcards and romance films, Paris, Tennessee is built on something quieter and more enduring. Family ties, friendships that last decades, and the kind of small-town loyalty that doesn't fade easily. It isn't a city of love, it's a town of long-term relationships. Yet there is something beautiful about how this tiny town embraces its giant name. The replica Eiffel Tower doesn't try to compete with the real one. It doesn't need to. It stands for pride, for imagination, for the belief that even a rural community can carry a bit of whimsy and wonder. If Paris, Tennessee is about playful pride, the next town is about what happens when the young quietly slip away to bigger cities. Number 7. Mountain City. Reaching Mountain City never feels accidental. It feels earned, like a place you arrive at only after the road decides you've proven patient enough. Tucked inside one of Tennessee's highest valleys at over 2,400 feet, this small town sits where the Blue Ridge Mountains press close and the Appalachian sky seems only an arm's length away. With a population of around 2,500, Mountain City is the quiet heart of Johnson County, a town both geographically and emotionally set apart from the rush of the outside world. The drive-in tells the story before the town ever appears. Roads twist into long curves. Each bend reveals another ridge layered in mist. Morning fog clings to the forest like a soft blanket. You don't simply arrive in Mountain City, you emerge into it, as if stepping into a pocket of time that slowed down while the rest of the region hurried forward. Despite its size, Mountain City carries a cultural legacy much larger than its footprint. In 1925, it hosted the Mountain City Fiddlers Convention, a landmark gathering in Appalachian old-time music that helped shape the early roots of American country music. Today, the tradition lives on through the annual Old-Time Fiddlers Convention, where musicians gather from across the Southeast to echo the same tunes that once drifted across these hills nearly a century ago. The mountain valley amplifies every fiddle note gently, making it sound as though the hills themselves are humming along. Life here is simple, practical, and deeply local. A few small restaurants, a grocery store, gas stations, locally owned shops. Nothing flashy, nothing rushed. This is a town where most services come from someone who knows your grandparents and probably your middle name. But with limited job opportunities, many young people quietly leave for larger cities like Johnson City or Knoxville. The departures create a subtle ache beneath the town's charm. Beauty and struggle sit side by side. Nature is both friend and gatekeeper. The valley's beauty, emerald summers, flaming autumns, snowy winters, comes with isolation. The same mountains that make Mountain City breathtaking also stand as barriers to economic growth, leaving the community both sheltered and cut off. There's a sense of being at the end of the road and where the world feels distant, and silence stretches long enough that it almost has an echo. Yet the people who stay embody a quiet resilience. They hold on to their traditions, protect their sense of place, and preserve a kind of Appalachian spirit that feels both timeless and fragile. Mountain City may not be booming, but it is enduring. And in many ways, that endurance is its own form of beauty. From a high mountain valley, we drop back down to the river valleys and forest roads of a town that literally begins the state's most scenic drive. Number 6. Tellico Plains. Some towns feel like destinations, others feel like doorways. Tellico Plains is the second kind, a gateway tucked quietly at the foot of the mountains, where the last hint of everyday life fades into wilderness. With fewer than 1,000 residents, this small Tennessee town sits cradled between forested slopes, winding rivers, and wide expanses of untouched land. It is the kind of place where nature isn't scenery, it's a neighbor. The town itself is modest, a handful of houses, a few small shops, a grocery, and long stretches of open space where the forest seems to breathe. Pickup trucks sit outside the bait and tackle store at dawn. Locals gather at the cafe where the morning smells of biscuits and fresh coffee. Mist hangs low over the river before the sun finally pushes through. Tellico Plains doesn't rush because nothing here demands speed. But for a town so small, it leads to something immense. The Cherryhalla Skyway, one of the most breathtaking scenic byways in the entire Southeast, begins right here. The Tennessee side stretches roughly 25 miles before crossing into North Carolina, climbing steep mountain grades that reach up to 9%. The road winds past overlooks where the horizon stacks itself in layer after blue layer. There are no malls, no gas stations once you leave town, and phone service disappears quickly. What you gain instead is silence, sky, and an untouched wild that feels almost ancient. Bikers revere this route. Road trippers plan entire vacations around it. Photographers pull over again and again, chasing perfect light across the ridgelines. But it's not a drive for casual tourists. With limited restrooms, scarce water access, and virtually no cell signal, the Skyway demands respect. It's a ribbon of pavement through a world that does not bend to convenience. Life in Tellico Plains reflects that same balance of beauty and challenge. Many residents make their living supporting nature tourism, renting out rustic cabins, guiding hikes, running small outdoor shops, or helping visitors navigate the forest. Others farm, craft handmade goods, or commute to larger towns for work. It is a place where the rhythm of life follows the land. Step out your front door, and within minutes you can reach a trailhead, a cold mountain stream, or a waterfall tucked between mossy rocks. Tellico Plains sits on the edge of the wild, a place still anchored in community while brushing against the deep, quiet mystery of the Cherokee National Forest. It's a reminder that some towns aren't meant to be big, some are meant to be thresholds. While Tellico Plains is all about the road to the mountains, the next town is about the stories people tell when the road finally stops. Number 5. Jonesborough. Some towns preserve history in museums. Jonesborough preserves it in voices. As the oldest town in Tennessee and the self-proclaimed storytelling capital of the world, Jonesborough sits in Washington County with a population somewhere between 5,800 and 7,000. But numbers alone don't explain its atmosphere. You feel the age of this place long before anyone tells you. Red brick buildings line narrow streets paved with old brickwork. An elegant courthouse rises above the square. Wooden balconies and restored storefronts give downtown the warmth of a place that still believes in front porches and face-to-face conversations. Walking here feels like entering a living chapter of early America. But Jonesborough is more than its architecture. Each October, something remarkable happens. The quiet streets transform as white tents rise across downtown, turning the entire town into a patchwork of temporary theaters. This is the National Storytelling Festival, an event that draws thousands of visitors from across the country and even the world. Storytellers stand before packed audiences, weaving tales of humor, tragedy, memory, and myth. Some speak softly, some command the air like stage actors, but all share a simple belief. Stories are what keep a community alive. During those festival days, Jonesborough feels electric. Cafes overflow, bookstores stay busy, and the sidewalks fill with people drifting from tent to tent, chasing the next voice, the next story, the next moment that makes a stranger feel like a neighbor for just a few minutes. But once the tents come down and October slips away, the town returns to its gentler rhythm. Jonesborough becomes quiet again, beautifully so. Small bookstores invite slow browsing. Antique shops hold their doors open like old friends. Locals greet each other by name on Main Street. Visitors pause at historical plaques that stand like whispered reminders of what the town has witnessed over centuries. In Jonesborough, slow life doesn't only mean moving at a relaxed pace, it means making room to listen, to the stories told on a porch swing, to memories shared over a cup of coffee, to the quiet strength of a town that has lived long enough to understand that every person carries a story worth telling. Here, heritage isn't locked behind glass. It's carried in the voices that echo through the festival tents every year, and in the everyday conversations that happen long after the crowds leave. Jonesborough is America's front porch, the place where stories sit down, settle in, and stay a while. From spoken stories to living landscapes, the next town hides its magic in the soil and the endless rows of green. Number 4. McMinnville. Some towns are shaped by rivers, others by railroads. McMinnville, however, is shaped by roots, quite literally. Known as the nursery capital of the world, this town of roughly 13,000 people sits quietly on the eastern highland rim near the edge of the Cumberland Plateau. At first glance, McMinnville looks like a modest rural hub, the county seat of Warren County. But drive even a few minutes beyond downtown and the landscape reveals its secret. Stretching across the region are more than 400 nurseries, a patchwork of greenhouses, rows of saplings, potted shrubs, and long fields of meticulously organized plants. In the early morning, mist catches on the tops of thousands of young trees. Workers move between rows like caretakers of a vast, living library. Trucks rumble out of town carrying maple, dogwood, magnolia, and ornamental plants to garden centers and landscapers across the United States. It feels less like a small Tennessee town and more like one enormous open-air garden center spread across an entire valley. This is where McMinnville earns its global nickname. The nursery industry pumps hundreds of millions of dollars into the regional economy each year, but it also gives the town something less measurable, a rhythm shaped by the seasons instead of the clock. Spring means planting, summer means watering and pruning. Autumn brings harvest and shipping. Winter is a rare season of rest when the town feels even quieter than usual. Yet McMinnville isn't only about its gardens above ground. The area is also the gateway to some of Tennessee's most beautiful geology. Just outside town lies Cumberland Caverns, one of the longest caves in the country, where underground chambers and rock formations stretch deep into the earth. Nearby parks, like Pepper Branch Park, offer kayaking along a clear river, shaded picnic spots, and short trails that wind through mossy woods. A visitor can spend the morning exploring nurseries and the afternoon wandering through underground worlds or standing beside a waterfall. Downtown McMinnville is in the middle of a gentle revitalization. The historic Park Theater has been restored and glows at night like a beacon of old Tennessee charm. Small cafes, local bakeries, and boutiques give Main Street a warm, low-key atmosphere. People greet one another easily. Life feels grounded, literally and figuratively, in earth, water, and work done with the hands. There is something soothing about a town where nearly everyone works with living things. McMinnville feels like a hidden garden, not because it's lush, but because it teaches patience. Growth takes time, seasons matter, and beauty often starts as something small and overlooked. If McMinnville is about life above ground, our next town quietly hides its claim to fame deep beneath the surface. Number 3. Sweetwater. Most towns rest on soil, stone, or the quiet strength of old foundations. Sweetwater, however, sits on something far stranger, an entire hidden world beneath its feet. Home to roughly 6,300 residents, this small city is the largest community in Monroe County, a place defined by brick storefronts, hand-painted murals, and the slow, steady rhythm of rural Tennessee life. At street level, Sweetwater looks ordinary in the most comforting way: a stoplight at the crossroads, a diner that's been around longer than most of its customers, and rolling farmland stretching out toward low hills. But beneath that simple surface lies a secret as vast as it is silent. Just outside town sits Craighead Caverns, a winding network of underground passages carved over thousands of years. Deep inside those caverns is the Lost Sea, officially recognized by Guinness as the largest underground lake in the United States, and the second largest non-subglacial underground lake on Earth. Its glassy surface lies in perpetual darkness, untouched by wind or weather, a world that exists completely separate from the traffic and daily chatter happening just a few hundred feet above. Visitors reach the lake by walking through the caverns, narrow pathways, domed ceilings, and rock formations that shimmer under artificial lights. The tour ends with a gentle glide across the lake in a glass-bottom boat, where fish move like pale shadows under the water. The silence feels heavier here, almost sacred. It's the kind of place where your voice automatically drops to a whisper, even if no one tells you to be quiet. And yet, for all its extraordinary geology, Sweetwater itself has never turned into a flashy tourist town. Life remains grounded, blue-collar, and deeply local. Many residents work in manufacturing, retail, or small family businesses. The motel near the highway serves road trippers and truckers more often than cave explorers. Restaurants are simple and familiar. The town feels comfortable in its own skin, unpretentious, steady, and refreshingly unaffected by the wonder that lies below. That contrast is what makes Sweetwater unforgettable. Above ground, school buses, porch lights, grocery runs, and neighbors waving from car windows. Below ground, a silent lake older than memory, hidden inside a cavern so dark and still, it feels like time has been paused. Sweetwater is a reminder that some of the quietest towns carry the biggest secrets, not because they boast about them, but because they don't need to. They let their mystery live in the earth, beneath footsteps, beneath stories, beneath the simple routines of everyday life. From an underground lake to open skies, the next town trades caves for cliffs and quiet streets for gliders riding the wind. Number 2. Dunlap. Some towns feel suspended between two worlds, but Dunlap makes that split literal. Life here stretches from the quiet soil of an old industrial valley all the way up to the wide open sky. With about 5,300 to 6,100 residents, this Sequatchie County seat sits inside the long, narrow Sequatchie Valley, a place framed by the towering walls of the Cumberland Plateau. It's the kind of valley where fog gathers each morning, lifting slowly over fields, rooftops, and the single main road that threads through town. But look up, and Dunlap immediately transforms. This small, peaceful community is known as the hang gliding capital of the East. Henson Gap, one of the premier launch sites in the region, sits high on the plateau, looking out over the entire valley like a natural balcony. From here, members of the Tennessee tree toppers and pilots from across the country step off the ridge and glide into open air. Their wings catch the wind at sunset, circling above farms and schoolyards, painting silent arcs of color against the sky. The East Coast hang gliding championships bring in flyers, campers, and spectators who fill the valley with excitement for a few days each year, then leave the town as quiet as before. But Dunlap doesn't just look to the sky, it also remembers what lies beneath. On the edge of town is the historic Dunlap Coke Ovens Park, an 88-acre reminder of Tennessee's industrial past. Here, 268 old beehive-shaped coke ovens sit in long rows, once used to turn coal into coke for iron smelting in the early 1900s. Today, vines creep across their stone arches, and the forest has softened what was once a noisy, soot-filled worksite. Locals come here for walks, photo spots, and small community events. It's peaceful now, almost too peaceful for how hard this ground was worked a century ago. That dual identity is what gives Dunlap its quiet magic. Above ground, life moves slowly. Kids biking on neighborhood streets, church parking lots filling every Sunday, and small businesses anchoring the downtown blocks. But the valley has an unusual rhythm, part grounded in history, part lifted by the wind. The industrial past sits quietly in the shade, while the hang gliders overhead bring a sense of movement, youth, and unexpected freedom. Dunlap feels like a town that literally breathes in two directions: downward, into the earth where past generations labored; upward, into the air where dreamers, adventurers, and newcomers chase the horizon. And when you finally float back down to the valley floor, you might find yourself craving a different kind of stillness, one where the only sound is gentle water brushing a lakeshore. Number 1. Winchester. Some towns live by the clock, counting minutes between commutes, errands, and deadlines. Winchester, however, lives by the rhythm of water. With a little over 9,000 residents, this Franklin County seat curves gently around Timms Ford Lake, a 10,700-acre reservoir with nearly 250 miles of shoreline. Here, life doesn't follow the pulse of a highway. It follows the slow drift of pontoon boats, the quiet cast of a fishing line, and the pale shimmer of morning light across the lake. The moment you arrive, the town feels shaped by water. Houses perch close to coves, docks stretch into narrow inlets, and the silhouettes of boat lifts line the shore like familiar neighbors. Just beyond the neighborhoods lies Timms Ford State Park, a 3,546-acre landscape of hardwood forests, trails, and hidden coves. Visitors come to kayak through still water, camp on primitive islands with no amenities, or wander beneath canopies where the only sound is wind brushing through oak leaves. At sunset, the entire lake seems to glow, orange, violet, then blue, until the last waves settle into the quiet. But Winchester is not only a lake town, it's a community town. Downtown, the rhythm changes slightly. Families gather at Winchester City Park, where the swimplex fills every summer afternoon and trails loop around open green spaces. Local events mark the seasons: the High on the Hog BBQ Festival, the Farmers Market with familiar faces behind every stall, and the 4th of July fireworks reflecting across the water. It's the kind of place where people stop to talk, not because they have time to waste, but because they genuinely know each other's stories. And through it all, the lake remains the town's quiet metronome. Instead of traffic jams, residents encounter lake traffic, boats drifting slowly, fishermen taking their time, kayaks moving at the pace of thought. Evening routines often involve casting a line, idling across a cove, or simply sitting on a dock, listening to the soft tapping of water. Life here is slow not because nothing happens, but because everything happens at the pace people want. That's Winchester's emotional pull, especially for older viewers dreaming of a calmer retirement. It offers a vision of life stripped of hurry. Mornings on the deck with coffee, afternoons paddling between coves, evenings watching the sky fade behind a quiet lake. It's the kind of slow life that feels earned, soft, steady, and healing. Winchester reminds us that sometimes the most peaceful places aren't remote or dramatic. They're simply places where time follows the water instead of the clock. And from this lakeside calm, the journey continues toward towns where slow life means something entirely different. From the whiskey-scented hills of Lynchburg to the storybook streets of Bell Buckle, from Sweetwater's silent world beneath the earth to Dunlap's gliders drifting across an evening sky, our journey has traced some of the quietest corners of Tennessee. And now, as we end beside the still waters of Winchester, it's clear that each town carries its own kind of stillness, its own way of reminding us that life doesn't always have to move fast to feel full. In a country that's always rushing, which of these quiet Tennessee towns feels most like home to you, even if you've never been there? Share your thoughts below. Tell us where your small-town heart belongs, or the place that made you believe life could slow down again. And if this journey stirred something in you, feel free to share the video so others can discover these hidden corners of rural America.